In the series on happiness is what we're going to be looking at. Finding the prize. I hate it when I misplace something or lose something and I just can't find it. Emily was supposed to sing, I think it was Palm Sunday, and she couldn't find her music. See, I told you this lead right into my sermon. And so today, though, wasn't it worth the wait? Oh, what a great job. It was worth the wait, and we are so blessed by it. So sometimes whenever we have that thing that we've misplaced or lose, and then we find it, wow, it's like a prize. It's wonderful. We have found it. How about this one? Does this happen to anyone besides me? And I usually tell Deb, so I know what happens to her too. But do you ever put away something for safekeeping? You've got to put away. It's in a safe place. But where is that place? All right, Loistine, I see it's me and you for sure. All right, Chief. Yeah, so you get the idea. Sometimes, and then when you do find it, I've got a paper that I've been looking for about 4 weeks. It's somewhere in the house, but it's not where I've looked. So I'm pretty sure that it's still there somewhere. Yeah, but whenever you do find it, it's like that prize that's just so wonderful to find. Well, I look out across this congregation, all but 3 remember this one. The box of Cracker Jacks. Remember the box of Cracker Jacks? It wasn't so much because of the stale caramel corn, it's the prize that you got. Oh man, that prize was worth the wait. The prize that most people seek in life today is happiness. Everyone wants to be happy. Every one of us want to be happy. For many people, happiness is that elusive prize that is seemingly out of reach. Now, they have glimpses of it, or they have a little vision of it far away. They think someone else has got it, but they can't seem to find it themselves. And that applies to many of us. Many of us have dealt with that. Now, often, that person seems to have, if we were sitting back looking, they seem to have the world by the tail. They've got everything that life has to offer. Except for they don't think they have happiness. They've got everything else. So understanding the value of happiness is going to be a very important thing for us to do. Oh, I was going to use this as an illustration. Karen's coming back in. I'll use it now. And I didn't do this on purpose, but I lost my Bible. And I was sitting there, I turned to Karen and go, "Where's my Bible?" And she assured me she didn't have it. It was on the pulpit. I got up at another church one time. I was getting ready to preach. And I always sat in the same place. And I'd put my Bible down, and one of the deacons had taken my Bible and hid it. And he's standing in the back. And, that happened here too. I was thinking of another church. But anyway, they had hid it. Fortunately, we have this outline. I don't think all the blanks were filled in correctly, but the sermon went on. So you kind of get the idea. It's elusive. But to have happiness, we got to understand the value of happiness. Having all that life has to offer, that sounds like such a blessing. Think about this. No financial worries. I know there's 3 of you in this congregation, but the rest of us have financial worry. You want me to name the 3? Anyway, no financial worries. Wow, that sounds like that could be happy. No wants. Having everything that I could possibly want. No needs. No stress. That means I'm not going to be minister, I can tell you that. No stress, no anxiety. But see, we've made happiness about all these temporary things. This is where we have a misunderstanding, a confusion about happiness. So we have made it all about temporary situations in our life. We have it about desires, about our ego, about our security. Matthew chapter 4 and verse 11, everyone knows this as the temptations of Jesus. But I'm going to try to point out a new look at them, if I may, and see if we can have a new thought about it. In Matthew chapter 4, then Jesus was led by the Spirit into the desert to be tempted by the devil. After fasting 40 days and 40 nights, he was hungry. The tempter came to him and said, "If you are the Son of God, tell these stones to become bread." And Jesus answered, "It is written, man does not live by bread alone, but out of every word that comes out of the mouth of God." The very first thing I want you to see that your happiness is more valuable than your personal appetite. Your happiness is more valuable than your personal appetite. People often miss happiness by confusing happiness and their immediate desires or their immediate needs. Jesus has been fasting for 40 days. He's hungry. You know, I fast for 4 hours. I'm hungry. So I'm sure he was really hungry. He's hungry. Now the devil has come to him and said, hey, you can make this happen. You can make this happen. We have this, I want it, I need it, and now, and I'll worry about it later. But Jesus is showing us in this that true lasting happiness requires me to adjust my appetite. Now I'm not just talking about your physical appetite or the food that you eat, but I want you to think about the appetites that you have of life. Life's appetites. Many people have addictions because of life's appetites. All sorts of addictions. It ranges from sex to drugs. We hear all about it on your evening news of all the problems that are going on. We hear about those appetites that people have. We hear about that desire to have and I want it right now attitude. Or I'll put everyone else at risk to have that. That's what Jesus is talking about with appetite. And Satan is tempting him with that appetite. It's true that lasting happiness requires me to adjust my appetite. So Jesus had to adjust his appetite. Oh, it'd been easy to say, you're right, I am hungry. This is not a big deal. I can handle this right now. But it would have been later that the problem would have come. So Mike's temporary wants and my temporary will have to be sacrificed to God's long-term desires for me and his will. Now the next one in verse 6, here's what's going to take place there. We'll start in verse 5. Then the devil took him to a holy city and had him stand on the highest point of the temple. If you are the Son of God, he said, throw yourself down, for it is written, he will command his angels concerning you, and they will lift you up in their hands, so that you will not strike your foot against a stone. Jesus answered him, it is also written, do not put the Lord your God to the test. This one I've called ego. Ego. Can you imagine what Satan is doing here with Jesus? He is tempting him. He's saying, oh, so you say you're the Son of God? Show me. I want you to prove it. Go ahead and cast yourself down. You know what God has written about you. Show me. When our ego is challenged, many of us, we rise to the occasion. Whenever our ego is challenged or it is hurt, it challenges our happiness. Well, we don't like that being tempted, or we don't like that being put down, or we don't like that being second. Our self-worth becomes hurt. That's where this temptation is about. It would have been easy for Jesus to do all that Satan had said, and it had been no problem because he could do that. He wouldn't have even had to worry about the angels catching him. He's the Son of God. He could easily do that. In fact, he will show it later. Remember, he shows up in the room at the final day after the resurrection. After the resurrection, showed up with the apostles and the disciples. He could easily do this. This is no big deal. But someone said, show me. Show me. You ever have anyone do that to you where they have dared you? I bet you can't do that. Man, I hate that when you do that to me. I have this ego that says, yes, I can. Yes, I can. I know we visited the Grand Canyon once, and I'm afraid of heights. And I went over to look down. Deb and the kids are screaming at me. They know that I can't stand heights. Yes, I can. I can do this. You remember that? Okay. She still remembers, so it's okay to use it. Yeah, our ego gets in our way. Our self-worth. I can do that. But Jesus is telling the tempter instead, my value, what I desire more than anything else, is to be happy. And if I put God to the test, my happiness is in danger. My happiness is in danger. So immediately we're seeing Jesus with the right answer. Now number 3 is, in verse 9, it's going to tell us this one. Start in verse 8. Again, the devil took him to a very high mountain and showed him the kingdoms of the world and their splendor. And all this I will give you, he said, if you will bow down and worship me. Jesus said to him, away from me, Satan, for it is written, worship the Lord your God and serve him only. Then the devil left him. This one is about our gain, my personal gain. That my happiness is more important than my personal gain. Happiness can be lost because we base it on what we have, And that becomes unfulfilling because we never have enough. There's always something else that we want. There's always something else that's just a little elusive. So I'm really happy for the moment, but then I look around and know I want this as well, my personal gain. So Jesus has given us three things that we have to be aware of and see where He's taken us and what He's telling us. He's telling us about our personal appetite in His temptations. That we all have these things that we desire, that we are hungry for, whether it's food or material things. That we have this ego that is easily damaged that we call self-worth. And that we have this greed about us that we call gain. And He's warning us about all of those being in the way of our happiness. So how does that, knowing that, help us find our happiness? How does that help us find our happiness? Well, folks, now I know what the devil is doing to throw me off. And the prize that I'm seeking is a happy life. A happy life is not found in temporary fix. We've all tried that, haven't we? Haven't you all tried that? I know I have, that there's things that I think I want and that's really going to make me happy, and then, boom, it doesn't. Temporary fixes can cause baggage. They can cause fear, remorse, regret. Jesus shows us that in the temptations from Satan, what ego, earthly riches bring, happiness is only momentary. That's only a momentary happiness. So am I willing to trust Jesus to find happiness? Now this happiness that I'm going to talk to you about is a happiness that's just based right here on earth. It's eternal. But it's not just eternal happiness, it also has a basis here on earth. I want all of you to take just a moment and think about your life. All of you, there's not a one of you that doesn't desire to be a happy person. Now each one of you can tell me about some momentary happiness that you've had. You can tell me about when you got that new car and how special it was. Or you can tell me about when something come into your life and how happy you were. But most of those, as you look at them, you're going to say, yeah, that lasted for a while. It was momentary. And we had it for a little while. Every one of us would like to have some lasting happiness. We want happiness that is just going to always be there. And if we base that on temporary things, you will never have it. All right? You'll never have it. And we all need to know that. So how does eternal happiness help me? So let's go back and look at your life. Some of your momentary happiness was ill-gotten. Okay? Some of it was ill-gotten. We'll call it sin. Oh, I read that in the scripture. We'll call it sin. Okay? Sometimes we have sin that will create momentary happiness. But whenever we have sin that creates momentary happiness, what does that do in the long term? It gives you long-term baggage. Long-term baggage. Not just momentary. You know, if the baggage was as quick as the happiness, all right, try it. But I promise you that the baggage is long-term. Most of us, I would think I'd be safe in saying all of us, have some long-term baggage that we are carrying. Does anyone ever think about anything from high school that you did that you're thinking, oh, I wished I hadn't done to that person? There's 3 or 4 people I hope feel that way about what they did to me. So you thought it was going to be the other way. Yeah, we all have some of that long-term baggage. That stuff that we wished, oh man, what was I thinking? One of those moments. That's how finding your happiness in Jesus allows you to move forward. Now, number one, He's going to forgive you. I got a series coming up later on about forgiveness. But there's a forgiveness. Let's say, though, that you have trouble getting past it. And I want to remind you, this thing of forgiving yourself, there's nothing in Scripture about forgiving yourself. It's about you've accepted forgiveness from God or you've not accepted forgiveness from God. It's either or. So let's say you're having trouble accepting that. How's this going to help you? It's probably not. I want to be very clear about that. You're probably going to carry that baggage until you learn to forgive accept God's forgiveness. You will carry that baggage. But if you move forward, wanting the prize of happiness, and you start turning your happiness to being developed by God instead of developed by my temporary things, I'm not going to pick up any extra baggage. Now, is there anyone here that doesn't have enough baggage from the past? I've got 3 or 4 things I'll loan you. All right? All right, there's no hands that have gone up. Most of us have enough baggage from the past. Deb's married to hers. You see that look she's giving me? Man, that's just wrong, Deb. Don't any of you start calling me the bag man, okay? So, yeah, so we've all got that. It's there for all of us. So we have to realize then, if I don't want any more, I don't know about you, but I don't want any more baggage than I've already got. I've got all that I can handle. In fact, I got more than I can handle. So the next thing that we have to do then is see how God is going to work for us, how He's going to do that. Am I willing to trust Him? I have to be willing to pay the price. Now I want you to remember the temptations. Jesus was still hungry. He was still hungry. Whenever it was all over and the temptation's been given, He's still hungry. It doesn't mean that that hunger went away. It means that He is willing to pay the price to take care of long-term happiness. So paying the price, if you go over to Matthew chapter 19, that's the first one that we're going to see. Here's a very familiar story, and I want to make sure that we see it correctly. Matthew chapter 19, verse 16 and following. This is what we call the rich young man. Now a man came up to Jesus and asked, "Teacher, what good thing must I do to get eternal life?" "Why do you ask me about what is good?" Jesus replied. "There is only one who is good. If you want to enter life, obey the commandments." "Which ones?" Now that's a good question. You know, there's some I don't want to obey, but I can do most of it. "Which ones?" the man inquired. Jesus replied, "Do not murder, do not commit adultery, do not steal, do not give up false testimony, honor your father and mother, and love your neighbor as yourself." Now get this, I love this guy. "All of these I have kept," the young man said. Now, if he would have stopped there, that would have been the end of the story for him. But he doesn't. You know why? Because he knows he's lacking something. What do I still lack? I've done all these good things. What do I still lack? Jesus answered, "If you want to be perfect, go and sell your possessions." That was number 3 on the temptations, remember? Go and sell your possessions and give to the poor, and you will have treasures in heaven. Then come follow me. When the young man heard this, he went away sad because he had great wealth. This is a good guy. He's not a bad guy. He's got good values and good standards. And he wants Jesus to give him a get out of jail card, a free pass. I've done all of this except. So in verse 20, the rich young man knows that he lacks giving. Now what does that include? Well, that's generosity. That's compassion. That's kindness. And he lacks all those things. Not just the giving part. Folks, your giving is more than just giving of money. That means that you've got compassion upon the work that is being done. It means that you've got a kindness that you want to extend to ones that are around you. It means that I'm willing to be generous with what God has given me. Giving isn't about money, it's about us. So whenever you give, it's not about keeping the doors open and the lights on and the fans working. It's not about that. It's about you. And that's what Jesus is telling this young man who is wealthy. And the young man says, "Oh, look at all that I've done. Can I have a free pass?" Even though he has mastered his appetite, his wants, even though he has mastered his ego, happiness is elusive. It's eluded him. He went away, verse 22, sad. Folks, if you want happiness, you got to sign up for all 3. That's why we have the 3 temptations that are given to us. If you want to be happy, we're going to have to see that God has to have a hand in it. Happiness requires us trusting God in every aspect of our life. In my appetite, in my ego, and in my personal gain. That's what He's asked of us. But now there's another person in the Scripture that Jesus tells us about as well that will fall into the category. Matthew chapter 13, verses 44 through 46. This is about the parable of the hidden treasures. Jesus said the kingdom of heaven is like treasures hidden in a field. When a man found it, he hid it again. And then in his joy went out and sold all he had and bought the field. He went out and bought the field. This guy, he's got a lot going for him. He has a lot of earthly treasures. But he's found one that's more valuable than anything else. And he went out and got rid of his earthly treasures, the ones that he thought were making him so happy. Now see, the key to the story is those earthly treasures no longer made him happy, because now he's found one that is more valuable than ever. Folks, if you have found in Jesus something that is more valuable than everything that you own, then we have to put the other things in proper perspective, in proper order. We have to realize that they have no importance anymore. And that's what this parable is about, that those other earthly treasures, it was nice to have them, but they no longer have the value that this last one does. The number one prize that every one of you want is happiness. You'd rather have happiness more than money. Now you may think you want money first, but when it really comes down to it, you want happiness. You want to have happiness more than being puffed up with your own ego. You really want to have more happiness than how big your bank account is, because that's not going to make you happy. This man knew the value of happiness, and he paid the price. A person who totally gets it, so he gets rid of his temporary things to have the greatest prize of all. So happiness really boils down to this. You want to find it? That was the title of the sermon, Finding Happiness and Keeping It. You have to make a decision whether you want a temporary fix or do you want a forever fix. Do you want to be temporarily happy? Now I want you to understand, and I don't want anyone to leave here misinformed. There's nothing wrong with some temporary happinesses, as long as they're not sin created. There's nothing wrong with temporary happinesses. If you are giving to God and returning a portion to Him like you're supposed to, and you decide to go out and buy a new car, more power to you. Come by and you can take me out for an ice cream. I'll be very glad to drive your new car to the Dairy Queen. So come on by. I remember Charlie Dale bought a new Mustang. The very first place he come was here. I said, I get to drive it. And I was the next one to drive it. I'm probably the only one that's ever driven it besides Charlie. But so if you've got that, bring it by. I'll be happy to share that joy with you. Some temporary happinesses are not bad at all. Now there's some that create a lot of baggage. Those I recommend you stay away from. But the bottom line is, you've got to decide. Do I want that temporary right now? I'm very happy right now, because I guarantee you that newness will wear off. Or do you want the happiness every day? The happiest part of my life isn't about the things that I've acquired or the things that I've done. It's not about the money we've been able to save. The happiest things in my life, it's not about the accomplishments that I've made. I've been very blessed with some things that just made me feel good at the time. And now I look back at it and think, well, big deal. You know, big deal. It's just not near as important as it once was. So what's the one thing that has lasted me for 48 years? Jesus. Jesus. None other. Deb and I have been together 48 years. I had Jesus a little bit before I had her. There's been a few times that she's threatened me. Jesus has never threatened me. Let me point that out. Jesus has never been mean to me. going to be a bad afternoon. We're not getting... And you thought it was about over. You're here for the duration. I'm going into sermon number 3. What's the one thing that never fails you? It's Jesus. If you want to be happy and you want to know it, know Him. All the rest will fail you. All the rest there'll be those days when they're just not as joyful as they are other days, or as important. But every day, Jesus will lift you up in your darkest moment. Every day, Jesus will walk through the pit with you. Whenever you are in the dumps, it'll be Jesus that is there helping you. Whenever it seems like the bad things will never quit coming, it'll be Jesus to say, the light's still there. The light's still there. It'll be Jesus who's going to help you, folks. If you want happiness, you want to find it, you want to keep it, I believe that Jesus is the Christ, the Son of the living God. And I want my eternity to start right now, so that each and every day gets better. Now for some of us, and I'm going to close with this, for some of us, I still got the baggage of the old life. I've got baggage I can't get rid of. I'm going to be quite honest about that. I got baggage that I pray about. I've offered to give it to God. I've offered to give it to you. God, I'm willing to give it to whoever will take it. And I still have it. But the Apostle Paul said this, that I have a thorn in the flesh. And God said this, my grace is sufficient for you. So I'm going to have to deal with that baggage. I'm just going to have to put up with it. I'm going to keep asking Him to take it away. I pray that someday He does. But until then, every day is a new day in Jesus. No new baggage. Will you all please stand as we have our invitation?